Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Masters with Harshith podcast. Last episode, we covered the Harvard MBA, and this time we're going to look at the Columbia MBA. We have with us Mahima. Hi, Mahima. Welcome to the podcast.
Everyone. Hi, Harshith. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time, Mahima. So, Mahima is currently a CBS MBA student, and over the conversation we're going to have today, we're going to see why she chose her MBA, what she's doing in
Mhm.
her MBA, and what she plans to do post her MBA. So, Mahima, why don't we step back to see what you were doing before your MBA? Like, what motivated you to pursue the MBA program?
Yeah, for sure. So a little background on me. I'm originally from Mumbai, but I did my undergrad here in the US. I went to Rutgers University and I double majored in computer science and math. And then post that, I was working actually as a software engineer. My last job was at Goldman Sachs. So since I was already super technical, I felt that I lacked some of the more business skills that are really needed because I see myself getting more into managerial positions down the line. And that was originally my career track. So the fact that I lacked all of those basic econ finance class skills, I thought it's a good point to go to business school. And then I applied to Columbia, which is also in New York City. I worked in New York City, so it was just a more natural match that way. And obviously, CBS is a great school. So yeah, that was the reason why I thought going to MBA would be good. And post that, I think it'll really help me with my career path.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Mahima, what other schools did you apply for? Like, of course, you were in NYC already, so Columbia was a good choice for you. But did you apply to any other schools? And what was the rationale behind picking CBS specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, full disclosure, I applied to six schools, but I applied to CBS, I applied to MIT, I applied to Cornell, NYU, Darden. Is that six? Am I missing one? Might
I
be
think it's
missing.
good. Probably
Okay.
five, but it's fine. Yeah, that's
Yes. I think MIT for me was would be a really perfect match if that worked out.
Mhm.
Mainly because coming from a tech background, I think that was a match, and then I that was what I was thinking of first. But then
Right.
when CBS happened and when I started, I mean, obviously I had to apply to Columbia because I was in the city. Columbia is like a really big name. The year I applied, Forbes gave it the best business school in the world. So, I mean, that probably counts for something. And then I started talking to all the folks at CBS. I spoke to AdCom, I spoke to the students, and I personally felt that it is an amazing school. I think now I stand by it. I think I made the best decision to come to CBS. I also got into NYU, Darden, Cornell. But I think from those schools, I thought that CBS just works out much better for me in terms of, obviously having that big legacy with the Columbia University legacy. And then also, like, the school is amazing. I wanted my course to be very more finance enlightening, which CBS is a big finance school. The tech resources are great. The culture is great. People are nice. Everyone wants to go to New York City. So because of that, you see more fun people coming to CBS. And it's just, so I think earlier I was like, oh, I could have gone to MIT, but now I'm like, no, CBS is just perfect for me. I've spent like a semester here and I love it.
That makes a lot of sense, Mahima. Even for me, when I was coming to Columbia, I was like, it's going to be super expensive. Do I really want to take, the thing? But after coming here, like the exposure to like non-tech thing for me is like insane, and I love what Columbia is doing. So that makes a lot of sense. So, Mahima, a lot of people who enter an MBA program, they usually have like an investment background or a consulting background, things like that.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
what do you think you did differently? So, obviously, there are a few people who move in from tech as well. So do you think you did something differently, or like was there something in your background that you think kind of helped you move into like the MBA program at Columbia?
That's a great question. And I get asked this so many times. I think my LinkedIn is just filled with people that, hey, I'm a software engineer too. How did you get into
Right.
Um, I think it's a very difficult path because apart from me, we have a class of like 700 students in class of 2025, just the August
Hmm.
entry. It's a
Right.
really big school. Um, and only like, I want to say like there are only 10 other people who are software engineers. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
actually, yeah, a very small pool, which I had no idea about when I was applying. So now I'm like,
Right.
what did I even do?
Right.
But to think about it, I think like I said, CBS is a very finance heavy school, and most of the people who go to CBS kind of want to end up into investment banking, private equity, consulting is a really big industry that
Sure.
kind of like CBS, there's a well defined pipeline there. So I think for me, what really worked was maybe because I was working as a software engineer at Goldman Sachs. So
Mm-hmm.
I came from like some sort of a finance background that CBS kind of
Mm,
appreciated.
makes
I think kind
sense.
of worked in my favor too. But I also know there are a lot of software engineers from big tech too. So not saying that they do not like folks coming from like startups or anything, but I think like um, it's just an interesting way to think about it. And I think in my application and in my essays, I really like showed how like I have the technical skills and I'm coming just to learn. And I think like I want to go into product management in tech. And I think
Mm,
that is like a pipeline that CBS is really trying to build out, the product management pipeline, because like
makes
that's one of
sense.
the bigger industries with IB and consulting. It's up there. There are like 400 people in the CBS Tech Club.
Makes
So it's a
sense.
really, really big club, and they're trying to build out that pipeline. So they thought I would be like a good match for that.
Sure. So, Mama, you were mentioning that there are very few software engineers in the program, right? And yet the tech club is so big. So does that mean like you have a lot of non-tech folks with like people with different backgrounds who are like trying to break into tech? Is that what it is?
100%, yes, that's exactly
Got
it.
it.
I think people are slowly realizing that IBM consulting is a big burnout space. I am not saying
Right.
something that I don't like. I don't want to offend anyone who
No, I
watches
think it's
this.
it's obvious, right? Everyone knows that like I've been consulting is good money, but like you have a fixed time through which you can do it, beyond which you're not going to be very
Yeah,
comfortable.
it's like a burnout space. It literally is. You get paid a lot, but
Right.
you're just doing something all day. And tech is like known for its really good culture. And
Hmm.
also, yes, it's a bad time for tech right now, but also
True.
last year was the Gen AI revolution. So it's going to come
Correct.
back up. Everything is getting digital. Where will tech go, right? It has to be go back
Absolutely.
up, is
Absolutely.
what how I think of it. So I think like I know so many of my friends who don't come from like an engineering or even like a tech background, and they just want to break into tech. Like that was their goal with CBS. So yeah, that's why the tech club is 400 people and they're like 15 software engineers. But that doesn't mean there weren't like data scientists, or that doesn't mean there were like people from like different roles within tech.
Right. Sure.
This is just like plain software engineering.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, Mahima, what was your timeline like for Columbia? So, usually business schools have different rounds, and then you've got like an essay, you've got an interview, and things like that. So, what was your whole process like?
Yeah, great question. So, September 28th, 2022 was the
Hmm.
early decision deadline for class of 2025. So I
Hmm.
started fall 2023. I applied early decision. I know my class was the last class they did ED. Now they got rid of it. Now it's
Oh, okay.
um, which is good and bad. Good because now you don't have to get tied up to CBS. If you get another grid school, you're not
Correct.
like, because early decision means you've decided you're going to go to
You
CBS.
got to figure. Yeah, you've got to finalize the
Yes.
thing. Right.
Yes. If I would have gotten CBS, I would have to take off like all my other applications. Like that's what early decision
Right.
means. Um, and bad because obviously you cannot show that you're so interested in CBS that you're applying ED. So it's good
Makes
and bad.
sense.
I applied ED. It worked out for
Hmm.
me. I was also in the city, so I went to like a lot of like mixing sessions on campus. I
Mm.
met like a lot of alumni. I think that really worked very well in my favor. AdCom like really knew my face, and if they really know you, they'll like give more time to your application. So I think that is something like you mentioned, like how did you like get into CBS? I think that is
Right.
something that I can like point back to like something that really worked out for me. So September 28th, I put in my application. I heard back within 2 weeks for an interview, which was actually super
Nice. Okay.
fast.
Hmm.
And then I took my interview, I want to say in October, October 30. And mine was on campus.
Okay.
They only do that for a few people who are in the New York City area, but
Makes
mine was
sense.
on campus.
Right.
Um, a second year interviewed me, who was really nice. I
Mm.
really like him. I'm still in touch with him. And after that interview, they told me within a week that I got it. Yeah, so it was
Okay.
actually quite fast.
Right. So I think by like mid-November, you knew that you're going to CBS. It was like
Exactly.
awesome, awesome. So I think
Yes.
one thing you mentioned, Mahima, that was really useful is like, attending these mixers and like all these events that they host. So probably even if it's not like just a physical event, if it's even a virtual event, I think people should be encouraged to go for it so that they get to know more and even the adcom gets to really know them. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yes,
Uh,
100%. I just want to add on to that,
mhm.
yes, that is one thing you want to show. You want to show you care so much about the school. You've done your homework. You know exactly what it is, because passion is what really sells your application, is what I'd say.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense, Michael. So, when you finished off your application on September 28th, right? Like, what was the content of the application? How many essays were there? How many, reference letters were there? And like, what was that?
3 essays.
Hmm.
The first essay was more about your short-term, long-term goals, which I think
Hmm.
is kind of like what every business school asks for. So that is
Right.
something that if you like type out a draft, you can mix and fit for any school.
Correct.
Um, that was the essay that took the longest for me because it needed me to
Correct.
do a lot of like self like questioning,
Right.
realizing
Right.
like why am I even doing this? It's a lot of like
For sure.
monetary investment, time investment.
Correct.
Is this the right move for me?
Right.
And then also like in my application, I actually put I want to be a product manager, and that's still what I'm doing. But that's
Right.
not how it's supposed to be. You can say you want to do something, you can do
You
something
can
else. Like
switch for sure.
yeah, you can switch easily, but at that time, really mean what you're saying in that essay.
Correct.
And the second essay was more about like something specific to CBS. It's called Philip's Pathway of Leadership.
Hmm.
And then we had like a few key cultural goals that we had to say how we make a fit
Okay.
for. And then the
Hmm.
third essay was really interesting. It was about your favorite book or movie. And I wrote about this Bollywood
Wow.
movie that I think really resonated with me. So you could write
Nice.
about any favorite book or movie. Yeah. But I think they got rid of it, if I remember.
Okay.
But they change it every year. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned the book. I mean, like the book of the movie, right? What is it? Do you know what the rationale behind that is? Like, what is the university trying to see in students? Like, how do you differentiate uh, between candidates when you ask for this particular, essay?
Yeah, I mean, I really thought of it because I was like, do I be like an academic and say I read like
Exactly.
some crazy author?
Do you criticize the book, or like,
No,
what
for
was that
sure.
like?
I really thought about like if it's a show off moment or if it's like
Hmm.
truly them trying to know me.
Correct.
So like that's something that I told Adcom. I asked them, I was like, do you want me to like write about a book? But like I don't read that much. So like what do you want
Right.
me to do? I want to write about
Right.
a movie. I'm like a movie junk. I like watching movies,
Right.
especially Bollywood movies. So they were like,
Hmm.
oh, you should write about a Bollywood movie. So I wrote about a Bollywood movie. The movie Queen, I'm sure you know about it, is like about this
Right.
girl who really wants to like find her true self. And I think that's what
Correct.
has the journey I'm on in life too. So I think it resonated with me as a person.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Mhm.
So those are the three essays, and then you had two reference letters. Am I correct?
Recommendation, yes, there were two. Correct. Yeah, I took it
Okay,
from my previous employers. I was at GS this time, but before GS, I was working at Deutsche Bank. So yeah, my
got it. Like
managers,
one from each of them, or like two from them, right? There was no academic LOR per se.
they prefer
Professional.
something employment related. Yeah, for sure.
Mm,
Yeah, they
makes
prefer
sense.
that. You can ask your teacher to add another one, but like yeah, you
Mm,
want to get like two professional ones. Yeah.
makes sense. Makes sense. So,
Mhm.
when applying, how much do you think your undergrad GPA matters? Given that you have 2 to 3 years, or 3 to 4 years of like gap between your undergrad and your MBA, do you think GPA really matters? If yes, like to what extent? And yeah, that would be the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I should be like very politically correct about this because like all business schools want to say it's a holistic like review of your background. They
Right,
love the word holistic. It's a
for
great
sure.
word. I understand why they use it.
Yeah.
Is it true? I don't think so. I personally feel they really care about the hard numbers.
Mm,
They care about your GMAT score or EA score or GRE score, whatever like your standardized testing score is.
right.
Um, they care about your GPA to the extent depending on how far out you are from school. So I
Mm,
applied when I was just 2 years out of school.
right.
I graduated in 2020 early. So I was like kind of on the lower, I guess, work X side,
Makes sense.
which is
Makes
what
sense.
actually didn't work for me in MIT too, because
Mm,
they want like 5 years at least. But
mm,
I was on the lower work X side. So how far out you are from school, the GPA stops mattering that much because
Makes
At
sense.
that point, your employment matters more.
Right.
Yeah, I think the GPA is something that could be replaced by really good work experience. I don't think it's that
Mm.
hard a number. I think what really matters is the GMAT. I still, like, they say they don't care about it, but I have seen people get cut off before a low score. Like, they care about it. They do. They don't even look at your application if, like, you're not at that cutoff. I don't know what the cutoff is,
Right.
because they do take people, like, they have a range every time, and the range goes in the
Correct.
low hundreds too sometimes.
Hmm.
But then you mean you probably come from like GS, IB, or Google or something like that, right? So like
Right.
that's what I'm trying
Those
to say.
kind
That
of
I think, yeah,
correct.
that's what they mean by holistic.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, even for engineering, right? Like all the episodes I've done prior to this as well. Everyone says just one thing, regardless of how holistic the application is, your GPA is the first number that stands out, and only then will they look post that. I think that makes sense that even they're doing the same at the business schools as well. But I think, like you said, there should be a cutoff beyond which,
Yeah,
like your other parts of the profile start mattering. So, Maima, if you're comfortable sharing, what was your GMAT score like, and how
yeah,
did you prep for it? I'm assuming you did that during while you were working, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, what was that like for you?
I gave my GMAT twice. The
Mm-hmm.
first time I scored 720. The second time
Mm-hmm.
I scored 740.
Mm.
If I didn't score higher the next time, I wouldn't have submitted my score. So I think you should do that. Yeah, it
Got
just
it.
makes sense. But apart from that, I think how I prepped. I was working full time, yes, of course. So what I did was I used to, over the week, since
Mm-hmm.
um I had like a 9 to 5, what I was do is, like, if I had like a lunch break, I would like do like a question set of like 10-15 questions, just to keep like my brain's that side of like solving exercise kind of working. So every day I used to like hold myself accountable. I have to do 10 questions, either English or math, do that.
Right.
And then on the weekends, I used to spend like 8 hours a day. And when I got closer, I used to spend a lot more time taking practice tests. So weekends were practice tests, week were like actual like question solving, basics kind of thing. I did feel I got off with just like 2 months of prep, just because I feel my math was stronger because I had a math background. So
Right.
I didn't have to do a lot of work there. I felt like a lot of my work just lied in English and doing a lot more of that kind of prep. For English, a pro tip from me is read a lot of like good intellectual articles. Like, read like Economist, or like anything that like you think use like cool words that you might have to go back and like look up, like, what does this word mean? Because like once you can like read comprehension fast and you are in the habit of reading, you'll do very well on the exam. So that was something I had to pick up.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense, Maima. And the tip was good. I think the biggest, even for GRE, like what everyone suggests
Mhm.
is start reading these things that you're most uncomfortable with, because the ones you're comfortable with you can clean really fast, but what you're not interested in is what is going to slow you down. Like just get used to
Mhm.
reading those things. Uh,
Correct.
so now that you started your MBA, just you applied for your MBA rather 2 years after you started working, right? During your undergrad, at any point, did you consider doing applying for a 2+2 program, like Harvard has? I think even Sloan has that program. Did you ever consider that? What was that like?
No. To be honest, I wasn't even thinking about an MBA. Like,
Hmm.
that was like a far-fetched question for me.
Okay.
Um, uh, I was thinking about a master's
Okay.
in AI ML would
Hmm.
have been
Hmm.
like something more natural for me. But
Makes
then when I
sense.
started working, I realized I don't enjoy coding as much as I enjoy like the big picture stuff, and that's what
Hmm.
I wanted to move into product. And moving
Right.
into product is possible when you're a software engineer. But since I anyway wanted to get like a higher degree and go back into school before like I'm old and I
So,
don't want to do it anymore.
right.
I was like, okay, let me do the MBA. So to be honest, I just gave the GMAT. I just took it. I was like, okay, let's see how
Right.
bad it is. I wasn't even thinking of it as like, oh, I have to go get an MBA. It was just like a
Makes
side,
sense. Right. So there was
something
no
on the
pressure on you, like to do the
side.
best and stuff like that. Makes
Uh-huh.
sense.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
exactly.
So, Mahima, what was the interview like? You said it was on campus and it was a second year student taking it. So, what was that like? What questions were you asked? Was it more like they were trying to figure out who you are and like checking how genuine you are with respect to your application? Or was it them checking how intellectually, like, how you fit into the class? Like, what was that more like?
Yeah, two things. I think one, it really depends I think this was my experience. Everyone has a different experience with the
For sure.
interview, is what I would want to say, because like I mentioned, I interviewed on campus.
Mm,
So I was interviewed by a second year. There are people who get interviewed by like alums who are like, if suppose I'm in Mumbai,
mm.
I obviously cannot fly into New York for my interview. So someone from CBS who's graduated from CBS and is working in Mumbai interviews me, right?
Wow, got
Um,
it.
yeah, so that is how they do it. So if
Mm,
like they are doing it, they ask like they really grill you is what I've heard. They'll ask you like tough questions. They'll ask you like
right.
why do you want to go? What like they will really grill you a lot. I think
Mm,
I got like an easy pass. So I was on campus. It was he was a second year. He was so sweet. He just like asked me like tell me about yourself. Why are you interested in CBS? I think those were the two main questions that I can think of. And
right,
it was just very natural. Like as long as you've done your homework, as long as you yourself have written your essays and understand it,
right.
you should be
Should
okay.
be.
Because like that means like you're passionate, you know exactly what you're getting into. So that's the first thing. And I think the second thing that I also want to say is um in terms of like the interview, I think they care a lot about like how personable you are. Like
Mm,
because you're coming to business school, you will be in a classroom full of people who are confident and know how to speak their mind. Um,
right.
so if you want your voice heard, you have to speak up. So as long as you have a good voice, as long as like it doesn't have to be like the loudest person in the room. I think that's like a big like stigma about business school, that everyone is loud and speaking over each other. No, as long as like you have a good point and know how to put it
Mm,
across in a very like subtle and like good manner. I think that's what they're gauging more than anything else. As long as like you can speak your mind. Yeah.
absolutely, that makes sense, man. So,
Mhm.
in a few universities, I'm not sure, I forgot which ones they were. An interview kind of guarantees your admission to the program. So, what is that like at Columbia? Like, do you know people who've interviewed and have not gotten in as well? Like, does that happen too?
Hmm, interesting. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the folks who interviewed with me on campus, they got it.
Mm,
I think it's a higher rate if
of
you of you
makes
getting
sense.
in if you
Mm,
get an interview. But I also like I read a lot of like Reddit threads and like GMAT club posts about people
right,
like when you have given the interview and are panicking.
right.
And I followed some of them, and I think some people get cut off even after the interview. So yeah, I don't think it's sure shot, but I think it's
Got
a
it. So
really
there
proud
is.
of conversion. Yeah.
Mm, makes sense.
Mhm.
Makes sense. So, Mahima, what is the course structure at Columbia like in the 2 years? Like, what courses do you pick? Is it like general stuff for like the first year and you start specializing in the second year, or do you start specializing in the first year itself? What is that like?
Yeah, interesting. The core is something that everyone has to take unless you
Mm-hmm.
exempt out of it. You can like
Mm-hmm.
actually take tests to exempt out of course. Cores are,
Got it.
let's see. These give me PTSD, but we will recap them.
Right,
There
for
are
sure.
stats, there's business analytics, there's corporate finance, corporate finance builds on foundations of valuations, there's micro
Mm,
macro econ, there's strategy, which I think was a really good course. So like these are like core basics that like everyone that basically the business school thinks that everyone who's getting an MBA
right,
should know these skills. And I agree. I think these were all great classes that I needed to take if I'm going to be a manager.
right.
So that was just core like first semester. I think this
Mm-hmm.
semester I'm just taking one core, and then everything else is an elective. So
Got it.
electives are classes you can like take. They're mostly case based, so like it's a lot of reading and it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like bringing your viewpoints and talking to each other and saying why you feel that or something like that. And you take it
Right.
with like world class professors. Like the elective professors are like top notch. They're so good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they probably work in the industry or they have worked in the industry for a bit and they know a lot. So yeah, I think that is the structure that we follow in terms of like picking um, like a specialization.
Right.
I know VC school has this. I know real estate, and I know might be like a specialization track for even PE. But I know for PM it's nothing like that. Like you can take like whatever you want.
Got it.
I'm taking more of the softer skill classes because I think that like
Right.
really helps me like with my public speaking, which I think is the most important thing you can ever learn.
Makes
So
sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, how do you pick your electives? I know in some business school you have this auction or like points system wherein you've
Mhm.
got like certain points. You're at the start of the year you're getting certain points, and you start like there's a bidding process for every course. Is that the same at CBS? What is that like?
There's no bidding. There is an algorithm which is called course match, which no one knows
Okay.
how it runs. No one knows. I don't think the
Got
school knows. I don't think the
it.
students know. It's just
Right.
no one knows. We just like we have to put our favorite class. We have to put the classes we want to take in favorite, great, good, okay. So this
Oh,
basically
okay.
shows like how
Right.
you, I guess,
Right.
want to how much
Makes
you
sense.
want class.
Right.
I
Right.
favorited this class, which is called Org Change by Todd Jick, who's one of the best
Okay.
professors at CBS. Yeah, everyone should look him up. He's amazing. And
Right.
I favorited it and I got it. So I that's like my boasting like card for the
Right.
semester. I'm taking that class. It's amazing. And that's in term B.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing, okay, CBS 101. CBS does like term A and term B in a term.
Okay.
So term
Oh,
A goes till March. We if there's a class that's only term A, we wrap up like the final, and then I get like the credits for that class, and
got
then I
it.
move to term B. So there are some classes that only fall in one term.
Got it. So it's like a half semester kind of a
Yeah,
class as
right.
well.
Half
Makes
semester within a semester. Yeah, yeah.
makes sense. Makes sense.
Mhm, mhm.
So, Maima, what is the class like at CBS? Like, how many students in each class? You mentioned that there are about 700 people in your batch. So I'm assuming that's when you say your batch, are those people who've entered in like your semester, like the fall semester? I'm assuming. I'm not sure what it's called at the business schools. And I know that there are some people who enter in the spring as well. So, like, how many students enter? Is it like a 1-to-1 ratio, or do you have less students entering in the spring? What is that?
Yeah, less students in spring for sure.
Mhm.
It's like about, I think our class of 2025 is the biggest class CBS has ever had.
Mhm.
They just keep on growing. But like
Right.
19 A term, it's called A term for fall and J term for spring.
Okay.
August and
Got it.
January. That's why.
Oh, okay. Got it. Got it.
So you start in August, it's called A term, and then
Mhm.
you have 690 folks. That's like the biggest class. And
Right.
then G term is, I think, 300 more people. I think CUS is
Got
now
it.
like a thousand, like HBS, so it's
Right.
getting there. And Wharton too. I think Wharton is a really big class too. So
Right.
yeah, 690 plus 300 there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. What was your other question?
I mean,
So
like in terms of diversity, like how many Indians do you think there are in your batch? Because most of the audience who's watching this is probably Indian. That's the first
yeah,
thing. And second thing is like, what kind of backgrounds do they come from? Like, are they engineering folks? Like, or like you said, CBS is more of a finance school, so is it a lot of people who coming from investment banking and finance and things like that,
yeah.
or what is the general ratio like?
Yeah. Great point. I think it's good to cater to the audience. I think that's something really important.
Right.
There are 50 people from India who have an international passport. I think that's key because there are a
Hmm.
lot of American Indians who we have to.
Right.
So yeah. 50 people from India
Hmm.
who have an Indian passport. That includes me.
Right.
So, like I said, like this also, that 50 pool also includes people who have US based experience.
Oh, got
So,
it.
like
Right,
that
for
makes it
sure.
more competitive too. So
Right.
that's
Right.
something to be wary of.
Makes sense.
The other thing about in terms of like what backgrounds do they come from?
Right.
Yes, very finance heavy. I think everyone
Makes
is a
sense.
CA, and then like
Uh,
I don't come from like a lot of like IVP backgrounds or something. Like
correct.
I was telling my friend the other day, like, can you like explain to me like a toddler what private and public equity is? Like I have no idea. So
Right.
very finance heavy. Correct. Yes.
Right.
Yes. I think that's
Makes
just the nature of the school in general.
that's very true. So that's what I'm trying to figure out through this podcast and like help students understand like what is the DNA of every university. So I think we've clearly established Columbia as more towards like finance and things like that, but they're also trying to pivot towards product management or include that as well. So that makes sense.
I think
So
just one thing there. I think
sure,
since
sure.
they're trying to build like a class of 1,000, they have
Hmm.
to like it can't just be finance, right? Like
Correct. Correct.
they have to build a USB. They're trying to make it a bigger school, so that's
Makes
why they're trying to
sense.
venture into different industries. And the only way they can venture is if they find people who want to go in those industries and have that background.
Right.
So I think that's where I fit in, and that's where anyone else who has a background like me or just in tech would fit in. So I think there's a good shot. There's a higher shot than someone who comes from finance because there are already so many people who come from finance who want to go to CBS. Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. That I think that adds up to everything we've been talking about so far.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Mama, was there something you wish you knew before starting at Columbia, like CBS? Something you want to tell, share with people who are probably admitted and are watching this right now?
Yeah, firstly, congratulations. You made it. That is the most important step. Even if you're applying, take the leap. It's worth it. Um, Something, okay, let me answer this in two ways. One thing that I wish I knew before, and one thing that I'm the most grateful for since I've been here
Hmm.
for a bit. I think those are two important like takeaways from everything.
For sure.
So the first thing in terms of like one thing that I knew before I started would be um that your mind is going to be, and like your um attention is going to be pulled in so many different directions. This
Mhm.
also goes back to the fact we never like discussed this, but I'm sure everyone in our audience knows that business schools are party schools. Like
Absolutely.
people just want to party, and more than
Right.
any other school. Like it's people want to party. Like if like we could like put a tagline to business school, it'd be I
Right.
reiterate that so much because I didn't know how much people wanted to party.
Okay.
So before I came in, maybe I would try to like tell myself, because in the first semester I really struggled with the fact that, oh, people are going out, like what am I doing, why am I like studying, and like why am I
Right.
like worrying about recruiting, like I'm supposed to go out. And like that puts you in a really weird guilt, because
Correct.
ultimately you're here to make your life right. Like people want to party, but that doesn't mean like you want to party. And I
Correct.
think that's what I'm getting better at in the second semester. I'll go to a school thing if I want to go to a school thing. I'm not going to
Mm.
feel guilty about skipping something that people are partying to, because people party every day. So I'm sure you'll find something whenever you want to go.
Right.
That is one thing I wish I like kind of like readied
Figured
myself
out.
before.
Makes sense.
Um, Most grateful for. I think the grateful for factor goes back to like the people that I've met. Um, Everyone is amazing. I'm not saying people are not like snobbish. You're gonna meet so many snobby people at business school, mainly
Right.
because it's a finance heavy school too. So they come from like
Correct.
they feel like they own the entire world, which is not
Right.
true. But you're going to find people of every background. But I think
Mm.
what I really am grateful for is meeting people from like different countries who have so much to offer. They know so much. They know different things than you. And I think just being in a classroom with all these people and them like putting their ideas. I know business schools try to sell that as their USB, but that is truly the USB, that experience of
Right.
being in a room full of intelligent people. It really makes you smarter. Yeah.
That makes sense. So, if there was one thing you love about the CBS, what would it be?
One thing I love about CBS, yeah, the $1 billion building doesn't hurt.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of light. I wish they had like more like greenery in the building, but anyway,
Right.
for a different time. But yeah, the building is great. One thing I really love about CBS,
Maybe it could be
um,
a class or like, anything. Anything works.
for me, it's definitely the network. Um,
Mm.
when I reach out to anyone and I say I'm from CBS, they look at you different. Like it is a
Mm.
different thing. Like they look
Right.
at you different. They think you're smart, and I think like in corporate, it's all about making people believe that you're smart. Like that's
Correct.
literally corporate world. Like
For
they should
sure.
think you're smart and then buy whatever you're saying. Like that's literally what you want. And just having a degree that kind of like backs up that thing that you're trying to
The
sell.
narrative or like, yeah,
Exactly, that
makes
narrative and
sense.
support that, I think doesn't hurt.
For
So I think it's
sure.
the network. We went to Adobe for a tech club trek like two
Hmm.
weeks back. The CFO was from CBS. He sat with us.
Crazy.
The CFO of Adobe. He
Right.
sat with us, and we were like a class of like 20 people, and he was just like
Right.
chatting with us for 2 hours. He's like, "Oh, you guys are from Colombia. This is where I met my wife. I want to talk to you guys."
Oh, wow.
So
That's so
yeah,
sweet.
so it's very interesting.
Correct.
You bring back a part of people's life that they really enjoyed, and talking to
Mm.
you like kind of like helps them think about that good happy time. So yeah, it's the network. It's 110% the network. I think that's what I'm paying for, to be very honest.
Makes sense. I think this is something that even the previous episode we spoke about. We were like, you will learn to a certain extent in an MBA program, but what's more important is the people you meet there, and that's why the reason the MBA programs I'm covering in this podcast are only the top 5 MBA programs, because that's where we've seen people move into like really high positions in companies or
Mhm.
starting things of their own, and that's where your network is literally your net worth. They're very very overused phrase, but very true too.
It literally is the truest thing out there. Like
Right.
when I'm trying to start something and I know someone else who's done the exact same thing and made $1 billion, like
Right.
I can reach out to them just by the virtue of us going to the same school. Of course, your network is your network. So yeah, like I agree 100%. I think that's a great way to close this off.
Makes makes sense. So, is there any one last thing you'd like to share with the Columbia CBS applicants? Maybe Mahima?
Yeah, be very authentic and true to yourself is the first thing I would say. I know we don't like hearing that because we are coming from because everyone is going to be true to themselves and everyone's nice, but then how do I stand
Right,
out? But
right, for
that's
sure.
truly what I did. I was so true to myself. I told them exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an entrepreneur down the line. I wrote about that in my essay, and I truly like put a part of like my life into my essay and just like my being at CBS. So the first thing that I would do is if you're applying, first do well on your GMAT. It's very important. If someone is telling you it's not, it's a lie. Do well on your GMAT and only then apply. It's important. It's important. It's important.
Makes sense.
And then when you're crafting your essay, that's when you really have to do a lot of contemplation, understand why you're in this phase of life where you're paying so much and doing this very harsh thing, which is time intensive and money intensive. Um, is the ROI worth it? I think ROI is
Mm,
a term we all use, but it's so, so, so important to think of that metric because if it's
right,
not, especially in the market today, like I don't want to sound like sad and end this on a sad note, but it is a sad market. Like we're all
true,
like recruiting and it's not
for
looking
sure.
good.
Correct.
So think about all those things. Think about the macroeconomic conditions. Think about where you
Mm,
fall in that, where you're trying to get recruited, what the stats were in the previous year. Is CBS the right school for you? And then go for it. Yeah,
makes
that's the
sense.
last thing I would say. Mhm.
Right. So, Mahima, adding on to continuing in that particular thought, how much does program at CBS cost, and how, if you're comfortable sharing, how are you funding your education there?
Yeah, true. Sure, sure. So it costs. Now it's different for everyone. I think because it depends. Like if you're, I think this the number they give you is also based on housing. But
Hmm.
tuition for me, I also got like a 40,000 scholarship from the school for being
Nice.
um, just because of Forte. Forte is like a women in business scholarship
Right.
that I got. So I got 40,000. So I pay, I want to say like 35,000 in tuition every semester.
Mm-hmm.
Do that by four, four, three, four,
140.
12,
Yeah.
140. Yes, you're smart, faster at math than me. Great. So 140.
Got it.
And that's not it, right? Now comes the partying, which is also important. So I would add like a
Right.
30. I know it's very on the high end, but you spend so much being in a city like
I've
New
heard.
York. It's
I've heard.
insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. So yeah, I want to say like top it off to like a 180 to
180.
100.
And plus, like you
Just
had a scholarship like 40,000, so that's like 220,
exactly
230. That's just for like
250.
tuition, right?
Yes, for
I mean,
everything.
tuition
Like
and like that.
yeah, I would say everything costs like
Mm.
240K. I think that's what they say on the website too.
Got it.
Um, and yeah, I think that's the program cost.
Mhm.
I'm funding it. I was working in the city, so and I was like working peak pandemic, so I was able to
Mm.
save like majority of my money because I wasn't going
Nice.
out. So that was a good.
Right.
So I think I'm mostly I'm funding it myself, and my family is
That's good.
helping me with
Makes
change.
sense. Makes sense. So, Maima, when you were talking about the Forte scholarship, right? I think a lot of students, especially from India, would like love to hear more about that. So, what is that like? And like, in addition to that scholarship, are there other scholarships that Indian students particularly can consider? And
Yeah.
do they consider this before applying for the program, or like by default, when you're applying, you just tick something in the application saying, "I want to be considered for a scholarship and get a scholarship"? How does that go?
Yeah, sure. Scholarship. So Forte is a Women in Business scholarship. I do know there are more scholarships for business school because I was doing
Hmm.
a lot of that research. It was a lot of applications. I was lazy, so I didn't do
For
it.
sure.
But I'm sure like you can find something out and do it. I unfortunately don't have the right number. If like we
Hmm.
post this video on YouTube, I'll definitely like put it in the comment section. I can do
Sure.
some research for everyone.
Makes sense.
Um,
Thank
but yeah, for sure. I think like Forte worked for me because
you.
they look
Hmm.
for like exemplary women in business. Um,
Hmm.
I'm grateful they thought I was an exemplary women in business, so they gave me one.
Right.
And this was something that I ticked on the application.
Got it.
I really followed up very, very frequently with AdCom that are you
Hmm.
giving me a scholarship? I really want one. I really want one.
Right.
Um, and they were like, oh, we're still thinking about it. And I was like, okay, I accepted. Like, there is no incentive for me for them to give me a scholarship. I'm already going.
Right.
I thought like they're not
Right.
going to give me one. But
Hmm.
then in early February, I got an email saying that I got a scholarship of 40,000.
Sweet.
Um, which was really good because and I needed that because at that point NYU, Darden, Cornell, all of them were giving me really hefty scholarships. So I was
Mm.
like, oh, I'm gonna do a disservice to myself if I like go
Right.
here paying so
Correct.
much. Because
Correct.
NYU gave me like a 50% scholarship, and I was like, wow,
Oh
that's amazing.
wow.
I need to take that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but Columbia was obviously a bigger name, so
Correct. For
like the
sure.
dilemma in my head. But they gave me
Mm.
40,000. I didn't stop there. I went back and I emailed and I was like, hey, like these are like 5 reasons why I should get more. So always sell yourself. Always sell yourself. Don't like do that
Got it.
where you're like not like getting your worth back.
Mm.
So I wrote an email. It was not worth it because I didn't get it, but I still
Right.
think like I'm glad I put in an email that they know that like
So that they know you're interested, you're still considering it and stuff like
we
that.
tried, and if it was possible in that pool for them to give more,
Right.
they might have given me more. So it's not
Makes
worth
sense.
it. It's sorry, it's not bad if you do
There's no
that.
harm for sure.
Yeah,
For
there's
sure.
no harm for it. You should definitely do it for
Right.
sure.
So were there other scholarships also wherever you check the Forte scholarship? Were there other scholarships also listed that students could have applied for?
I didn't check the Forte scholarship. I just
Oh,
checked
okay.
scholarship. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and
Got it. So you're just put into a pool.
they put they put you in whatever pool they think you're best. But I know there are so
Got
many
it.
people in my uh, I guess, cohort who are actually
Mhm.
100% funded from CBS with
Oh,
different
wow.
scholarships,
Right.
which are like really competitive too. So
Makes
yes,
sense.
check that scholarship tick mark, and if they think you're
Right.
worthy of that one, yeah.
Makes sense. So I think
But this
Mahima
is
one. Yeah, sorry.
sorry, one more thing. This is the only thing through school, right? There are other ways outside of school that you can get scholarships. That's when you do your
Interesting.
research, find out, and then put
Right.
in applications, and then that is the money you can use. Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I think that was super helpful. So one last thing before we wrap up, Mahima. So how do you envision like using your Columbia MBA going forward? Like, what do you want to do, and like, how do you think the MBA program would help you in that?
Yeah, great. Three things. One is actually taking really good classes on campus. I think that
For
is
sure.
the biggest way I can really get my Columbia worth. I think
Mm.
that's more important for me. I really want to understand what the gaps are currently in my working style, learning style, leading style,
For sure.
and then take it from there. So I think that's like a lot of homework I have to do and use this very well. The second thing, Columbia MBA. I mean, I it's the best school in the New York City area, right? I think that
Correct.
is there. So I think using that New York like network, I definitely want to like do a lot of in-semester internships with startups. And then if you go to a
Mm.
startup and say, hey, I'm an MBA at Columbia, I'm happy to help, they'll take you in, right? So
Correct.
use that New York City peak.
Advantage.
You know,
Right.
New York City is the biggest like recruiting city within the Northeast. So and then
Mm.
you go to like the most renowned school in that area. So that obviously like helps
Correct.
a lot.
For sure.
Um, so New York City, and then the third thing is obviously like I mentioned the network. I think
Correct.
network is also important. I'm definitely gonna like tap in. I think I'm doing a better job at like just reaching out to people on LinkedIn, be like, hey, I'm class
Mm.
of 2025. I want to chat with you. How did you do this? How do you do that?
Right.
And once they see your class of 2025 CBS, they reply.
They will
They
respond.
reply. Yeah, yeah,
Makes sense. Makes sense. I
yeah.
think that was most of what I wanted to cover, Mahima. Thank you so much for your time. This was a fantastic conversation. I learned a lot. I'm sure people who are watching it will also learn a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Harshith, and good luck to everyone who's watching. If anyone has any questions, I will please comment below. I'll be there and I can respond to
Sure. So
everyone.
I'll probably add in your LinkedIn, the URL to your LinkedIn
Perfect. Yeah,
profile as well, and that should help too.
great. Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching this episode. Do not forget to share and subscribe. Have a good day.